Hey Gearfacts geezers, well you don't see many of these anymore. This is the Casio CTK-811EX. It's a big keyboard in size, a big keyboard in terms of its loudness with these big speakers. It's also got a nice mixing system with good MIDI control here in the middle, 16 buttons there for the 16 MIDI channels. Also, just going over here, it's got some nice envelope algorithms. So it's more than just a set of sounds and a set of rhythms. There's a bit of synthesizer and a bit of MIDI capability there too that's quite interesting. So let's take a closer listen to the CTK-811EX. First of all, some basic piano sounds. Okay, so the first few tones that we heard there were from your general MIDI set. The last one there, though, has an interesting effect on it, and this is where the whole keyboard starts to become interesting. So you see there we've got an aftertouch function, which for a keyboard of this era and this type is quite interesting. Let's take a closer look at what we can do with sounds. First of all, we've got our DSP button right here. Pressing that puts us in DSP mode. And then we can press our plus minus buttons to cycle through a few interesting effects. Starts off with just a couple of basic reverbs, moves on to chorus, tremolo, phaser, organ, which is a kind of a rotary effect, enhancer, which does exactly that, enhances the sound, and flanger, loudness, adds a bit more bass and volume, and then we're back to DSP in the off mode. So what I'm going to do now is take this basic synth sound and run you through each of the DSP effects. First reverb, second reverb, and the third reverb, bit sharper. Now we're on to chorus and tremolo. It's got a good bit of stereo movement to it, that one. This is phaser. Nice and smooth. And the organ effect I mentioned earlier. Just going to try that in the upper register. This is the enhancer. The flanger. And finally our loudness effect. It seems to heavily compress the sound and boost the low end a little bit. Just keeping that same sound, I'm now going to press this synth button and see what these envelopes can do to our sound. The options in this section move from left to right, and the first option is to change PCM sound. So I'm going to stick to 199, which is this. Already quite a nice sound. So this is where we're choosing the attack envelope. And basically setting the curve that determines how our attack is going to sound. In the next screen we've got attack rate, and reducing this value will increase the time it takes to go through its attack path. So on the previous screen, if I change my envelope, make it a bit steeper, still got quite a long attack time, but you can hear how the character of that attack changes a little bit. Okay, this next one's fun. We've got pitch envelope. Some of them do quite extreme things, like this. Or this. And there are a few more interesting pitch paths you can take. Hear that slight aftertouch at the end? Here's one I really like. Another good one. And we're back to zero there. So most of those are pretty subtle, but the last 10 or so are really quite fun and interesting. This is our fine-tuning pitch control. We'll leave that at 0. And transposing. Leave that at 0 as well. Overall level. Touch sensitivity. 0 means very little response to sensitivity. And 63 makes it much tighter. A band control, which is obvious, we won't worry about that now. So that's pretty much all the parameters of our simple little synthesizer that we've got on this keyboard. Okay, now I won't go into this 16-channel MIDI mixer into too much detail because the only thing I've got to control with it are the onboard rhythms, which are never fantastic. But anyway, what I can do is by using my directional keys and scrolling left to right, you can see the MIDI channels are changing at the bottom there. So I'm selecting them with the directional keys, and if you look at your upper part of your screen now, you can see that I can actually change the instruments that are in each of those MIDI channels. So let's start with the drum set. I can actually change my kits. Add the rest of the music. And I can go through and change the kind of bass. Change the brass to maybe something a bit more synthy. Now I'm changing the bass guitar. I accidentally changed rhythm at the end there. I didn't mean to do that, but that 70s rock ending was actually quite good. Anyway, the point is you can go through each of your MIDI channels and change the instrument in there, which is a really handy thing and surprisingly easy to access in this particular keyboard. So now that we've looked at the synth and the MIDI control section and the digital signal processor, what's left to do now is to just have a general tour of the keyboard. Here we have a really nice pitch bend wheel. I know that looks ordinary, but it's actually a little bit more ergonomically friendly, I suppose, when you reach out with your left hand and control that. Right above it we've got a modulation button there. A very basic substitute for a modulation wheel, but still it's a handy little tool. And again, it's very ergonomically positioned right above that pitch bend wheel, so you can do everything you need to do with one hand. Moving just up here, we've got these awesome speakers. I've always liked Casio keyboard speakers. I think they often punch above their weight. These ones are particularly good though, with that nice 5-inch woofer there. A little tweeter there that does a good job of bringing a little bit more brightness and sharpness out of the sound. And of course, I don't know if you can see it in this dark image there, but there's a bass reflex hole right up there in the corner as well. So a really advanced speaker system on this keyboard. We've got the requisite 100 or so rhythms, all of which are pretty dodgy, but using that MIDI control system I showed you earlier, you can bring a bit of life out of those, and some of them are quite interesting and fun. Transport controls down there at the bottom, MIDI controls as we saw earlier, and the DSP just up on the left. Nice big screen, again in the classic Casio style. Directional keys that I was talking about earlier, and synth and miscellaneous sections there being blocked off by my camera cable. So what's on the back? Well, the answer is just the things that you need. Power in, a socket for your headphones, a socket for a sustain pedal, and then MIDI in and out.